Good morning, and welcome to Mind, Body, Spirit, Living a Holistic Life. Happy to be with you again this morning. Thank you for your calls and your feedback on our previous two shows. Based on those feedbacks, I made a decision to do one more show on this topic. We try to provide information on numerous subjects, and this one seems to have definitely gotten a response that seems to indicate the severity or the widespread nature of the problem or the challenge. So today we've been speaking about depression, and we've covered quite a bit of ground on depression. We did an overview of it to understand. We discussed how one experiences depression and mania. We spoke about the importance of taking responsibility for our own wellness and some of the possible causes of depression or mood disorders in general. So in today's talk, we're going to speak about how to get out of a depressive situation or depression. And many of you out there who suffer with this type of mood disorder, I'm sure have tried many, many different ways. And some work, some don't. So over the years, as we have these issues, we learn to deal with them in different ways. We learn different tools. One of the first tools to develop is to become sensitive and aware to early warning signs. As you become aware of these subtle shifts, and perhaps by also charting your moods, you become more sensitized to when depression may be setting in. One person, for example, reports that an early warning sign for them is that when they're crossing the street, they don't look both ways, something they usually do. That means that the brain is distracted from the way it usually functions. When you become aware of such signs, when you become aware of any symptoms that may be arising, there are some very simple things you can do, things that are not expensive, that don't cost money, or certainly not a lot of money. And before you go into a total downward spiral, there's, as I said, there are things we can do to stop that, to just stop it cold. But we need to be aware of those first signs, those early signs. And once we become aware, taking some action right away. By doing that, we can perhaps avoid, in many cases, be able to avoid going on that roller coaster ride straight down. We've spoken perhaps briefly about some signs of some early warning signs. Becoming confused, or an inability to concentrate, or developing anxiety. Certainly any type of inability to concentrate, or an irritability that may come up. A change in your appetite. Speech, slurring one's speech, withdrawal from what one usually does, pigging out on junk food. There's a lot of symptoms and signs, as I've said on previous shows. I'll be very happy to share a list with you because it's very extensive, and we've covered a little bit of it previously. So then we also covered some strategies in our previous program. And I don't want to repeat too much what it is that we've done, because you can listen to the previous show and certainly get a lot of information. So going on from what we spoke about last time, we covered the areas of strategy for alleviating or eliminating this depression. We spoke about activities that you can do or activities that you can choose. We spoke about a support system, or what kind of support to get. We spoke about attitude. Just briefly regarding attitude, anything that can divert your attention, being good to yourself, waiting it out, developing the ability to be patient, noticing one's thought patterns and seeing if they're becoming very negative and changing them to positive thought patterns, focusing on being alive just one day at a time. Laughter itself works wonders. So beyond that, we have the idea of management. And management, there are many things. If you're using some kind of mood-altering medications, well, yes, there are mood-altering medications that can help you. As you know, we are a holistic program, and this isn't a particular area that we get involved in. So there are some holistic things you can do. Being exposed to full-spectrum light, spending more time outdoors if you see early warning signs, keeping yourself busy, perhaps increasing your intake of complex carbohydrates. Also, if you've become sensitive to what foods may exacerbate your depression, eliminating those foods, getting enough rest, perhaps involvement in one's work, forcing yourself to go to work, maintaining some kind of balance in your life, very consciously working with that. So you might put in your journal regarding this last point, you might ask the question, what management strategies have I found for alleviating my depression? So the last area of strategy that I want to touch on is spirituality. One of my two favorite things that I do in my personal life, and I find them very powerful. One is prayer. I believe in prayer and the power of prayer. I believe in meditation. I've been meditating for many years. And if you listened to my previous shows, then you know that I shared on a personal note that during much of my early years, until I was in my late 20s, or perhaps even 30, but certainly into my 20s, I did have a problem with depression, serious depression, where I totally understand that feeling of being trapped on a wheel that one can't get off. So, and prayer and meditation were a huge part of what helped me get out of that. I suppose part of that is getting in touch with your own spirituality. Also, there are 12-step programs. I think they're excellent, and they absolutely help. So you might consider those, and also consider what other types of spiritual practices you have to help you alleviate your depression. Perhaps you're focused on a mandala, which is meditation, or you're focused on sound. Maybe music can be a spiritual experience for you, as well as an activity to look at. So the next thing I'd like to discuss is how to plan your life so that or why planning in general helps with mood disorders. If you're experiencing a mood disorder, you might well spend many days literally doing nothing, because mood disorders immobilize us. And the inactivity and the lack of accomplishment that develops from that actually deepens depression, and among other things, it lowers self-esteem. If you're accomplishing anything, you might even put it down as not important because of that self-esteem issue. When we talk about strategies that can break this cycle, part of that is make a plan and then stick with it. Very hard to do, not only for people with mood disorders, but for people in general to stick to it. If you make a plan and you're not sticking with it, your self-esteem will always be at risk, because your inability to follow through or to see things through. The other thing is to, once you've made a plan, look at the tasks involved to achieve it, and then break it down into smaller parts. And lastly, regarding any plan that you make and any of the steps that you've taken, as soon as you've finished a step, give yourself some credit. Give yourself perhaps a reward. Maybe when you've finished an important step and you need to take, and before going on to the next step, perhaps treat yourself to going out for a nice lunch with a friend, or buy yourself a little something. Give yourself some kind of reward, but certainly give yourself credit. There's things that we have to do in our lives. If you're a homemaker, or if you're single or married and you're at home, well, you've got to take care of your home. We need to sweep and dust and vacuum. We need to clean the dishes. We need to clean our windows. We certainly need to clean our home. And that in itself may be enjoyable for many people. It's always been a good feeling for me to use the executive filing cabinet, meaning the garbage pail. I always get a good feeling when I'm able to throw a lot of things away. I suppose because when I throw them out, I free myself from the burden of whatever those things were. So I feel I'm really clearing my space, as well as my, not only the outer, but the inner space. And then you might do, there are other things you can do that you really enjoy, perhaps going for a walk or listening to good music. I listen to music, I love music, and I play music. When I get home, as I said in a previous show, what I find very healing is I sit down and for a half hour or 20 minutes, I don't expect to ever be a concert musician, but I like playing my guitar, just enjoyment. It's important when you plan your day, it's important to include the things that you have to do, and when you do them, having some sense of having achieved them, and some things that you enjoy doing. And that's because if we do only the things we have to do, that takes the color out of living. There's not necessarily a good feeling about everything we have to do, We want to balance that with some things that are truly enjoyable, just pleasure. And that gives us a sense of joie de vivre, a sense of I'm alive and I'm loving it. So there's some lists that I can share with you should you be more interested or should this be an issue. But I can go over them briefly. Perhaps things we have to do, well, go to work. Here's a tough one that a lot of people avoid, actually. Balance your checkbook. How about organizing your closet? And then there's simple things, vacuuming, washing the dishes. If you have a house, mowing the lawn. Make the bed instead of running away, leaving it all disheveled. What about things that you enjoy doing? Well, what are your hobbies? Play music if you play an instrument. Maybe if you have a pet, maybe spend some time with your cat, just petting them. Spending time with an animal is very healing. If you like art, then sketch or draw or paint. Call a friend, have a nice chat. If you're into movies, maybe pick a particular movie you want to see, go to a movie or watch it on TV. So I want you to make your own list. And on that list, put down what is it that you have to do? What do I have to do? And make another list that says, what do I enjoy doing? And keep these somewhere where you can look at them. And one thing I do recommend is don't get stressed by this. In other words, you don't need to look at them all day long. Have a look, see what you need to do, and work your way through the day. If you spend all day doing things that you have to do, well, that's going to make life very dull. You have to develop a balanced daily plan. I'd like to give you a short example, or not example, I'd like to give you a chart that I think would be of great benefit to you. So the chart would have 4 categories. And regarding a plan, the categories would be the first column or column would be time, meaning 8 to 9 a.m. or 8 to 8:30 a.m. or 10 to 11 p.m. So different times. And you schedule your day. Then the second column would be your planned activity, and also perhaps expectations regarding that activity. I'll give you examples in a moment. The third column would be the actual activity itself. And the fourth column would be your reaction. In other words, how did it feel to you? How does it feel? How it felt? So I'll give you an example. 7 to 8 a.m., wake up, take a shower, brush your teeth, brush my teeth, take care of my personal hygiene, empty my bowel, empty the bladder, whatever your personal hygiene is. So you put that in. Then make some breakfast, perhaps some oatmeal or whatever your breakfast is, some scrambled eggs and a slice of toast. Then you put down your actual activity. The actual activity was that you got up, you took that shower, you had that egg and toast, or you had that oatmeal, and then how that felt. Well, over here you might put down that it felt better than if you had just kept sleeping throughout the day and done absolutely nothing. Then, since that's at that time, what's the next step along the way? And that's not a pun, because the next step might be walking to work or taking the subway to work. On the way, maybe picking up the morning newspaper. Then seeing if then in the actual activity you can put down that that's what you did, or you took the subway to work, but you didn't pick up the paper, so you put down took subway to work, right? Or you didn't pick up the mail, the morning mail. So that was then how it felt. Well, if you walked to work, then you might consider that perhaps exercise. Maybe that made you feel better. Then when you get to work or wherever you're going, perhaps the next step is checking your email messages and sorting through them, seeing what's important, what isn't, spending an hour on that, returning any phone calls, and then the actual activity that you did. If that was the plan, how did you do? Well, I opened my email, I sorted through it, I put down which needed a response, which were junk mail, if it didn't get picked up by spam. And I returned one phone call or two phone calls when, let's say, I had a message pad for 6. So I returned 1 or 2. And then how it felt. Well, it felt better to be doing these things than if I had done nothing. And the list goes on. You get the idea. Whenever you've done the planned activity, the way it was put down as a goal, then you can just say done as planned. So that's a skill part. The idea, if you're someone who's a working person, if you're not a working person, there's a different kind of a chart. But in either case, you're using the same kind of chart in terms of columns, and the activities may vary. I'm happy to send you the chart, and I'm happy to send you examples of it. And then, in your journal, you might ask questions like how you felt on days when you didn't follow your plan, or how it felt for you on days when you were depressed and you did follow the plan. So both of those perhaps need to be filled in. We're going to move on to an important part of making any plan, and that's not to take on the whole mountain, but to take it one step at a time. Because even small tasks, when you're in the midst of a mood disorder, can seem like mountains. So if we analyze what we need to do and break it down into small parts, it can be a lot easier to handle. If we talk through it with our support system, which we spoke about earlier, if we write down what we need to do and what we need to do to accomplish the final task, all that will help us. And that sense of accomplishment from getting these things done definitely can help us come out of depression. When I'm used to feel depressed, I found it hard to do anything. I found it hard to get dressed. If I break that down into smaller parts, then maybe it would have been a lot easier at that point. I just didn't have the right support system, but eventually I did. Breaking it down into small parts means, picking some clean, putting the clothing I slept in, pajamas perhaps, in the laundry bin, taking out fresh clothing, choosing particular clothing, choosing what shoes I'm going to wear, making decisions, and dressing in stages. Okay, now I'm putting on my underwear, now I'm putting on my shirt, my pants, now I'm putting on my socks, my shoes, doing each step. If you're doing dishes, clearing the dishes, any extra food surplus into the garbage would be a step. Clearing the dishes from the table might be a previous step. Putting the dishes in the sink and running some water over just any grime, any oils that might be there. before putting them into the dishwasher. Then putting them in the dishwasher, stacking them, that's a step. Then closing the door and starting the dishwasher. All of those are steps. And if we put them down and see the steps and see what we need to do, on top of which we set the dials on a dishwasher, right temperature, movement speed, all of that. If we do that, all of a sudden, it's not like, where do I start? I know where I'm starting. I know where I'm finishing. And that makes life a lot easier. The question that I would ask you to ask yourself is, when you're feeling depressed, what are the jobs, what are the tasks that you have a hard time with? And if so, can you break them down? Can you break down one of these tasks that's really hard for you into smaller incremental steps? And that's going to make that task manageable. I would break whatever you're doing, break it down into anywhere between 8 to 10 steps. Let's break them down. So other suggestions that I have for you, certainly one, it would be not to withdraw from any of the activities you usually do or from the people that you're around. Changing your negative thinking, any distorted thoughts, change them to realistic ones. Not easy. I'm not saying these things are easy. I'm saying these are tools that you can develop. Have strong will and determine that you want to fight for your own health, your own mental and physical health. There's a number of affirmations you can use. It's possible to function adequately even while enduring a fairly severe downtime. Right? You want to use those kind of affirmations. Keep some belief that the world does have a structure and an order that's spiritual for sure. That it's not just a chaotic world without any significance. And why are we here? There's philosophers on many sides of the aisle who've dealt with these questions. Start to read. The existential view tends to speak about the meaninglessness of life, of the existential view of life. And that's really undermined by stability. So there are some things you need to do internally, and perhaps with a good friend. I will give you some tools that I've mentioned earlier. Keep a journal. Take a warm bath. Get dressed. Pick nice clothes. Clothes may not make the man, but they certainly have an effect on our mood. Meditate. Do some relaxation practices. A good book from your library, as I said. Have lunch with a close friend. Take a nap without sleeping through the whole day. Read, or maybe listen to some music. Go to bed at a reasonable hour. Get enough rest. So, there's probably much more, and I can share, as I said, charts with you. If you're interested, just call us. I'll be glad to send you some type of, I'll be glad to send you a chart of things that you can do. So when we're seeking some kind of help for dealing with depression, there are studies that have cited, for example, different criteria for when people should seek help. The general consensus, however, is that the sooner that we seek help, the better. A lot of people feel that the best thing to do is to get help at the very first warning signs. One person reported that she needed help, and she sought help when all her usual attempts to help herself weren't working. When should you look for help? So we already said, as soon as you notice some early warning signs. The second time to seek help is if depression is lasting for more than a day. Perhaps the third one is when you need help in prioritizing and sorting out feelings. When you become unable to take care of yourself, perhaps when you become confused and your thoughts become all messed, all blended together and jumbled up, or any kind of extreme feeling of despair. It's a little dangerous. If you are experiencing deep, deep despair, then I would seek very rapid help. If you're feeling out of control, if you're having pain that becomes extreme, when you can't get out of bed, and the list again goes on. So we're not trying to cover everything on the list here, but we do want to let you know that there are approaches, there are cures for depression. I use that certainly in a guarded manner. This program is about education and not diagnosis or treatment. Nevertheless, I, speaking for myself, having suffered from depression throughout the first certainly 25 years of my life, have not had any sign, symptom, or even inkling of depression since my 29th birthday, 29th, 30th birthday, and it's truly important. So these are some of the things that I wanted to bring out, what the criteria are to use to determine the right time to get help, and to maybe write down your reasons for getting that help. There may also be some people that you prefer to get help from. So put down who your preferences are. Is it a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, a friend, a peer group friend? Who is it? Is it a group therapy situation, a 12-step program? And then you can ask questions, what do I want from my close friend? Well, here's the thing that you want. You want reassurance, validation, perhaps love, perhaps, a hug, just human contact. Affirmation that you're okay, that you're a good person. Maybe someone to have a good one-on-one conversation with. More relevant support from your close friends needs to be worked on, where perhaps someone to run some errands for you when you're unable to do it. So besides these, put down your own. What do you want from your friends? And also, what kind of help do you prefer? So these, again, we're covering a lot of ground. I'd like to just briefly touch on the next question, which is how people want to be treated when they're depressed. So how people want to be treated. Generally, if people are depressed, they want to be treated with love. They want to be treated gently. with some level of compassion and with respect. Perhaps the sense of having someone who will actually listen, or listen and tolerate, tolerance. So kindly, gently, with compression. And who is it? Is it a brother, a sister? Is it a parent? Identify these. Perhaps you want someone to pray for you long distance. Perhaps just wanting to be alone, separating yourself from people. I know that when I'm wounded or when I'm very upset, I'm like a bear. I want to go into a cave, not see anyone, not do anything, and just isolate myself and withdraw. Right? So that's one way. It's not necessarily the best way. The way is to approach the subject with honesty, with a brutal self-honesty, with an effort to keep yourself involved, with people who let you work things out. There's so many more things that come to my mind. I can't go through all of them with you, but I'll be happy to send you a chart for you to check off against. What we don't want from other people during a depressive episode. And this is well-meaning people who do this to us all the time. And that is someone who will blame us for what we can't help. Someone who will humiliate us. Someone who will desert us. Perhaps we don't want someone to tell us to get our act together, or to make demands on us that we're simply not prepared to take advantage of or to do. Someone may make fun of us or give us sympathy. We don't want sympathy. We don't want someone to fall, we don't want avoidance. So make a chart. What other things do you want to do? What other things, I would say, do you not want in terms of treatment? How do you not want to be treated? You need to come up with the answers to this. So I'm going to summarize for you what you can do if you feel you're getting depressed. And these are simple things you can do to help you alleviate symptoms. Perhaps while you're waiting for more professional help, or even just to keep yourself balanced. Now, they may not solve the underlying problem, but they'll certainly help you with the symptoms you're experiencing. For one thing we spoke about planning your day with some activities you have to do and some activities that you enjoy. Rate your expectations and then reassess how you felt after their completion. Listen to or help someone else. Get out of yourself. Use spiritual resources, whatever is available, whatever you're comfortable using. Get exercise. Do any kind of exercise. Get on your bike. Go for a bike ride. Do a stationary bike. Go for a swim. Jog. My favorite is have a brisk walk. Not window shopping, mind you. Walking, swinging your arms, breathing deeply. And go outside. Get sunshine. If you do have to be inside, open a window or sit near a window. Get light. Get help while you can. Don't procrastinate. If you feel a symptom is coming on, start right away to address it. Get rid of sugar and coffee. Get rid of junk food. Eat healthy meals. Eat a healthy diet. If you've done a task, then make sure to buy yourself something you've been wanting that you'd enjoy. What else? What else can I think of? Well, break down, as I said, the hard job into smaller jobs. Perhaps if you have a friend, talk to a friend who, as long as the friend is understanding, as long as your friend is non-judgmental, and speak with them for as long as you need to. It has to be okay to talk about anything and to be emotional. That's the kind of friend you really need. And the shoe fits on both sides of the aisle, so to speak. If you want a good friend, the question is, how do we get a good friend? Well, one way is to be a good friend. We don't click with everybody, that's true. But once you have made that connection, be a good friend. Perhaps your friend needs to talk. Then you need to be understanding and non-judgmental. It needs to be okay for your friend to talk about anything to you and to be emotional if necessary. But it also needs, a relationship needs that from you to a friend. Use whatever you can. If there are spiritual resources, entertainment resources, whatever you can, get comfortable and call it. We said to eliminate bad diet, buying yourself something. Perhaps read a funny book or go to a comedy, a funny movie. Certainly get dressed and get out of the house. So these are some of the major things that you can do that are not expensive, that are self-healing, that have to do more with lifestyle than anything else. On a more professional level, you might use some cognitive behavioral therapy. You might need a therapist. Perhaps you need that to get out of those negative thoughts. You might start to read some self-help books on this topic. What else? I'm not seeing anything in my mind that I can continue to speak about. So if it interests you, if you're suffering from mood disorders, I can certainly work with you or find someone professional in your area that you can work with. You do not need to continue to suffer with these conditions. What do you do if you're manic, and how do you come down? These are all questions that need to be answered. If you're planning and scheduling your day, perhaps you want to include in the schedule how you're coming down from manic behavior. There are many questions to ask along the way. And in the same manner, with mania as well, we want to break tasks down into smaller steps. How do you want to be treated? If you're experiencing mania, is there a particular way that you want to be treated? So these are some of the ways that people have reported in. One of them is to understand that the person going through it is doing their best to cope. So I'm going to put this in the singular because the test for this is going to be in the outer part. So for one thing, understanding others, being the kind of people that understand and knowing enough about us to understand that we're doing our best. We want to be treated the same as when we're feeling okay. We don't want to be singled out as someone strange or weird, or that, we're just not healthy or any of that. Treat me like everybody else. Also, give space. Leave them alone. People who treat us gently, calmly, but also who may be tough, who keep us grounded in reality. We certainly want to be treated with respect. We want to be treated as people who may need help. What about some very external type of treatments? Well, treat me with a nice dinner. Give me some professional guidance, perhaps, or guidance as a friend. Support my self-care efforts. Someone who will treat me with love, who will treat me seriously, who will treat me with patience. And listen, just listen. Be available, certainly. If you want, as I said, if you want to be a friend, to have a friend, you must be a friend. Being a friend means being available to your friends. It doesn't mean 24/7, but it certainly means being available to your friend. And go with the mood, but control any irrational behaviors. Okay, so we're still dealing with this, what do people want from others when they're experiencing mania. There are cases where treatment may be inappropriate. You have to be careful. That will make the problem much worse. Okay. Well, we're down to the last couple of minutes. I'm hesitating of jumping into a new topic because each step along the way of understanding depression, understanding this topic, is so broad and large in itself. I would say that when we are experiencing mania, others may look at us and tell us to relax, take it easy, right? Well, different people respond in different ways. So you have to know, how do you respond? If someone tells you relax, slow down, well, one response is, I don't listen to it. Two, I don't like it. Three, I ignore them. I tell them they're well bound up. To try to take control and feel frustrated when I can't. I feel embarrassment. I feel that others have discovered that I'm sick. Okay. As I said, I hesitate to jump into the next topic, and I don't think we're going to be covering it here. If you do want to set up a time when we can work together, or if you need a referral, if you need a recommendation for someone in your area who works with mood disorders, you can always be in touch with us. But certainly, if I had to go into any other topic, I'll just mention it without going into it, and that's dealing with embarrassment and feeling guilty. Because if we're suffering from this hyperactivity, this kind of mania, then guilt or embarrassment comes with the package. It's there as our internal reaction. So some things that you have to deal with are, don't blame yourself, don't blame the illness, blame the illness, not yourself. Try to erase it from your mind, and so on. Again, there are lists and charts, and I'll be happy to share those. The program is now coming to the very end. I want to take this time to tell you how much I enjoy being with you, how much I've enjoyed having this radio time, and I hope to be with you for quite a bit longer. So God bless you. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me. Hopefully it's been educational and enlightening, and it's given you some tools to improve your life, to make your life better. Once again, God bless you, and I look forward to being with you next week.